Hi and welcome back to the Teacher Experience podcast. My name is Miss Dearman. I am a Senko and biology teacher.
Hey, I am Miss Wild. I am a science teacher, so all three, and I am a lead practitioner as well. And I'm really excited to have you all here again.
Hopefully we have some of you regulars joining us again. If you have joined us previously, you will know that we start every episode with our WWW. If you are like me and had no idea what that was a month ago, that means what went well. And our EBI, which is our even better if. So Ms. Wild, what was your WWW for this week?
So mine actually spreads, I suppose, a little bit more beyond just the week. But I've been working really hard to make sure that I've got all my ECTs and their assessments quite organised. And I've made sure that I have observed all of them. We've got all of their assessments in, got them all signed off and put through. So the actual long-term organisation of that and then getting it done is definitely what went well. It's always just nice to see them through their ECT assessments and get that bit done. So yeah,
that's a big tick off the to-do list.
Do you know what? It's a huge tick, and I think sometimes I forget how much of a big tick that is because it's a lot of work. I think I've got about 12, that's 12 hours of observations.
Yeah, that's huge.
Let alone writing all the assessments, quality assuring everything, and making sure everyone is doing what they should be doing and we're all on task. So yeah, I'm very happy and glad that's done.
Amazing. Oh, I'm so happy that you've had a good week. What's your EBI then, your even better if?
So my EBI, as always, is obviously less details. But my EBI for me, mine always seem to be around well-being, don't they? Bit worrying. But mine is just to get a little bit more sleep.
Yes.
And I can't say I've been terrible. I've got an okay amount of sleep, but I think just making sure that if I need that extra 15 minutes, take the extra 15 minutes. Instead of staying up and watching that extra episode, maybe make the right decision and go to bed.
Yeah.
It's a hard balance though, isn't it? Because sometimes that extra episode on telly is part of your well-being.
Yeah.
And having that time to just switch off and calm down. I think it's a really, really fine balance between going to sleep and having time for your body to slow down and get you ready for that sleep cycle.
Yeah. I'm so that person. Firstly, I need more than 8 hours.
Same.
That classic, you need 8 hours of sleep does not apply to me because I need about 9.
Yeah.
I'm such a sleeper. But I also need a good 40 minutes before bed, like of wind down.
Yeah.
I can't come through the door and then get into bed. I need that downtime.
Yeah.
I read or I scroll on my phone. Both worked as effective as the other one.
I just need something to stop thinking about work.
Yeah.
It's so hard to do. I remember the other day, I had a safeguarding situation I had to deal with, and I emailed at the end of the day. So I'd done my part, I'd done my responsive, I'm going to report everything part at the end of the day. And then I came home and I was like, I want to check my laptop. And it's like, it doesn't matter what I do now because I've done everything I can. I literally have no extra information that I can give you. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter if I look at my laptop or not. But trying to switch off is so difficult. Yeah. So having that outlet to go, no, just stop. And I think it was in season 1, ages ago now, you mentioned about the wellbeing index report and you said don't have work objects at home.
Yeah.
And that was such a crucial moment for me not to have my laptop in the house, because had I left it at home and listened to the advice, it wouldn't have even been an option.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's so hard, especially when it's a safeguarding situation.
Yeah.
It's like, as teachers, we care so much.
Yeah.
And trying to switch off when you know you can't do anything else.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite difficult. Obviously, if I could have done something else, then I would have opened my laptop. But I was good. I didn't open it. So yeah, my EBI, get a little bit more sleep, but make sure I'm still getting that downtime in.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. So the focus of today's episode is collaboration. So we are going to be looking at extracurricular activities, soft skills, and social mobility. So I was actually struggling to understand what some of these terms meant when we were reading the report. So there's some data that's come out, which Wild is going to go into a little bit more later. But I've actually written down the definition of these. So extracurricular activities refers to breadth of activities which young people undertake outside of formal education. And some examples of these are drama clubs, guides. I know some of my sixth formers do guides, and some of the things that they've done is incredible.
They do such cool things, don't they? My nephew does, not guides, scouts.
Yes, absolutely. And they go out like hiking abroad and things like that. It's amazing.
So cool. And I know when I was looking at the research as well, that also, interestingly, the extracurricular also included tuition, which I thought was interesting. Oh. And I'll sort of expand on that in a minute about why tuition comes under extracurricular.
Interesting. Okay, so that's extracurricular. Soft skills refers to personal attributes that enable someone to interact effectively, harmoniously with other people. And just an example of this is communicational skills, problem solving, huge things that are so important throughout the education system, but then also when you go off into working life.
So important. Still learning.
Social mobility is the movement between socio-economic status, which is a new term for me when I was reading this report. So that's social mobility. So if we delve straight into this conversation then. So Dame Martina Milburn, the chair of the Social Mobility Commission, said, quote, "One of the best bits about childhood is doing the things that you enjoy outside the classroom. Joining a football team, learning to dance, playing the drums, yet research shows too many young people from disadvantaged backgrounds never get the chance." So, Miss Wild, I was wondering, based on your experiences in the schools that you've worked at, what were your thoughts on this?
So a lot pops to mind with this, and I can talk from a lot of experience because I've only ever worked in low socio-economic schools, and it's one of the main reasons I came into teaching. As regular listeners will now know, I worked through the Teach First route, and their mantra is to make sure that there's a fair education for all, which absolutely there should be. Socio-economic status shouldn't dictate how good your education is.
Yeah.
But it also shouldn't dictate what you have access to in extracurricular to be able to build all of the skills that come under extracurricular activities. So it doesn't surprise me at all. I think from my experience, the things that I've learned in working in low socioeconomic status schools is that whether it's just my schools that I've worked in or not, but their extracurricular offer within schools is lower from what I've heard. One from you talk about state schools that have a higher socioeconomic status, but also from private schools. So the extracurricular offer is lower. And I think that can be linked to teacher workload, because extracurricular activities don't come within our hours. So actually running an extracurricular club for the children is out of your own love and your own care, and obviously potentially your development as well. So especially ECTs, ITTs, NQTs, etc. It's a really good opportunity for them to get their TS8 standard up because they're doing something extra. They're building relationships with the kids. So they're doing something slightly different. I did it as an ECT. Well, I didn't do ECT. I did it as an NQT and I did it as an ITT. I ran a science club for 2 years. It was beautiful and I loved it. And the kids that came, it was so amazing to be able to build relationships with children outside of lesson, to be able to enhance their skills in something that isn't the curriculum, to be able to talk to them about things that we don't have the chance to talk about in lesson. So unfortunately, if you haven't got a staff group that have the ability or the time or the want to be able to run those extracurricular clubs, then they're not going to happen. But I suppose linked to that, the other thing that I found is that regardless of how much you offer, they don't necessarily come to the club. it's interesting to watch their reactions when you're like, oh, there's this club. Like, why didn't you go? It could be science club, dance club, coffee club, well, not coffee club, but a cafe club where they go. There's library club. And I've seen teachers like invest so much passion in trying to sell these clubs, and the kids are like, nah, you're all right.
And when typically are these clubs held?
Lunchtime or after school.
Okay.
I think, again, another issue is lunchtimes aren't long enough.
Yes.
And again, that's another reason. One, the kids don't want to go because by the time they've queued up for their lunch, got their lunch, gone to the club, they've got 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
The staff don't want to run the lunchtime club because by the time they've got their lunch, gone to the club, sat down, they've then got, that's another activity they have to plan.
Mm-hmm.
And they've not been able to sit down and enjoy their lunch. And now they're more stressed going into their next lesson.
So how long are lunchtimes typically in the schools that you've worked at?
I've had lunchtimes be as little as 30 minutes.
Wow.
And you know what it's like. You finish a lesson, you spend 5 minutes packing up, you spend a couple of minutes walking somewhere, you sit down to have a cup of tea, and then you've got to walk back. And it's, how do you fit a club into that?
Yeah.
It's really, really difficult. And the problem is, I know so many teachers want to do it. They want to run clubs.
Yeah.
But we're not given the space to be able to do that. And I literally had a conversation with a teacher last term, I think. She was like, oh, like every time it gets to the club, I don't want to do it because I haven't got time. It's ridiculous. She was like, when I'm in it, I love it. I absolutely love it. But then as soon as it finishes, I'm like, oh my goodness, I haven't got time to get prepped for my next lesson. And then I'm stressed.
Yeah.
So the balance isn't there for schools to be able to offer the right extracurricular.
So by comparison, I know of a friend that works in a state school of a, not of a low socioeconomic status. Their lunchtimes are 45 minutes.
Oh, that's a nice length.
It's a really nice length because then clubs are able to be run for 30 minutes. So it gives the teacher the time to get some food, eat it very quickly, but then prepare for the club, which is really nice. By comparison as well, I know of private schools that have 1 hour lunch breaks. And that's ample amount of time to run a club. So they have the capacity there to do that.
Yeah.
Totally linked to the socioeconomic status of both those groups.
Yeah.
And it's such a shame because I speak to teachers that work in inner city schools and they have to have a reduction in their lunch times to reduce any chances of fight outbreaks and things like that. And it's such a shame because then you don't have the time or capacity for teachers to offer this extracurricular activities.
Absolutely. And it's a really common theme that I've seen.
And it was a decision by the school to reduce the lunchtime.
Yeah, because they see the kids that aren't doing the extracurricular get bored.
Yes.
And then behaviour decreases. So it's a genuine problem, and that's why some schools do have a reduced lunchtime, which makes it really difficult on many different factors, but it reduces behaviour issues.
Yeah.
So it does swing on roundabouts. I suppose the other factor to that is extracurricular isn't just inside school.
Yes.
Extracurricular is outside school. I remember when I was younger, and I actually owe a lot of my soft skills, I would say, to extracurricular activities.
Definitely.
I'm so grateful of my parents of working really hard to find the money to be able to put me into these extracurricular activities. I know that wasn't easy, and as an adult I've had those conversations with my parents to say, like, thank you, I really appreciate you finding that money for me to be able to do those extracurriculars, because the skills that I got from that, amazing. But unfortunately we're in a world that's really not accessible for a large majority of students and their families, and especially if they've got more than one child. Obviously they like to be fair across their family, and trying to get those children into extracurricular activities is really difficult because you have to pay for them. And like we mentioned at the beginning, tuition can also be one of those, because it could be tuition like one-to-one tuition or group tuition for a curriculum subject, but it's extracurricular because you're having the opportunity to communicate and build on skills that you wouldn't necessarily be building on in a classroom of 30. So that's why that was in the extracurricular bubble. But I think having the opportunity to do all of these extracurricular things, whatever you want it to be, whether it's a music club, whether it's scouts, whether it's guides, whether it's a sports club, whether it's a dance club, there's so much out there.
Yeah.
But I think the big question is it accessible? And there's loads of grassroots for sports, there's loads of grassroots things. But again, is it accessible? And I think that's a really big issue. Are we utilising these third-party companies and utilising funding, so like lottery funding as an example, to put into those grassroots to enable the low socioeconomic status families to afford extracurricular? Because again, we're in that situation where, like Teach First said, they want a fair education for all. We want a fair extracurricular for all.
Yeah.
Because they both result in better outcomes in life.
Yeah.
Whether that's work, whether that's a CV.
Mm-hmm.
So I was doing CVs with my year 10s the other day. And I said, right, you need to put, obviously you haven't got work experience, most of you. So you need to put on about you. What extra things do you do? What books do you read? They were like, Miss, I don't do anything.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa. Well, you need to.
Yeah.
You need to go to a club at lunchtime. You need to go to a club after school so you can talk about it and give yourself that opportunity for someone to pick up your CV and go, oh yeah, they're really trying to widen their experiences. And if you haven't got that, it makes it really difficult. And I know when we did our university applications, really weird to think I didn't know you then, but when we did our university applications, I had to put down all of the extracurricular things I'd done.
I think that was the main focus.
Because they wanted to know that you were a holistically well-rounded individual.
When I think about what's helped me to be successful post the education system, and for me that was after my BSc, what has helped me be successful was all of those soft skills. And I hate the word soft skills because it makes it sound like it's not important.
It's so important.
Like soft skills, hard skills. I hate the term. If we go back to what the definition of a soft skill was, what I mentioned at the beginning, it was personal attributes that enable someone to interact effectively and harmoniously with other people. That includes communication. It includes teamwork. All of those skills is what's made me be successful after university. Not necessarily my degree certificate.
Yeah.
And I think about my role as a teacher in biology, because the curriculum is so saturated, because my time is so limited in the classroom with so much content to cover, my main focus is to get the best grade possible.
Yeah, not to develop the soft skills.
Not to develop anything else. And it's great in science because we can through practical skills and practical work, but that's not my main focus.
No.
It has to just be the best grade.
Yeah.
Key knowledge.
Can you recall it?
Yeah. And that'll be the grade they get in my class, in my subject, will be the doorway to what university they go to. But it doesn't give them anything else when I'm in the classroom with them. So to think that students have 6 to 7 hours in school not really having the development of these soft skills, that makes extracurricular even more important.
Yeah.
And like you said, we need a fair education, but we also need a fair extracurricular for that exact reason.
Exactly, because it does open those extra doors. And I think if we link everything we've said to social mobility, actually, to be able to have those students that are the first ones in their family to go to university and to change that socio-economic status of their family, to change the future, we need to be opening the doors for them. And it's like the Stormzy fund to go to Cambridge.
Yes.
Things like that is so important because we need to be opening those doors. But equally, open those doors for students to go to Cambridge, but have they got the soft skills behind them? Have we given them the extracurricular opportunities? Has Teach First helped social mobility within schools? All of these things come together and we need to be collaborative on it. Yeah. So actually, it's not just about parents trying their best to have the funds. It's not about teachers giving up their own time. It's not just about third parties providing the opportunity. It's not just about the government saying they should do it all. It's about how do we all work together to provide that opportunity. That's a huge question. And I think just us talking about it is starting that conversation.
Which is really important.
Yeah.
So we're going to move now on to some research that actually focused on university students. So not schools, university students only. And it was the GITNUX. It focused on the benefits of extracurricular activities, and it was a report that showed that students involved in such activities had an 8% reduction in the feelings of anxiety and depression. So examples of the skills that students gained were communication, time management, teamwork, organisation, problem solving, public speaking, and leadership. So I thought we could just explore some of these now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if we focus on the examples of the skills gained, let's talk about communication.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that?
So I think it's so evident. So I know I'm just going to use us for the first example. So I know that you did netball at university. I played tennis at university. And if I link that to pre-uni, that's because we had the opportunity to do that extracurricular before we went to university. Now, we did that at university and we had to go to trials. So we had to communicate with the people that were running the trials to tell them that we wanted to be there. When we were at the trials, we had to try and develop those communication skills. We were chucked into a situation where we knew no one.
Absolutely no one. And you're the youngest. You're a fresher.
Yeah.
It was really scary. I remember turning up and being so many students there, and you're the youngest and you're a fresher, and it was just almost intimidating a little bit.
So I think instantly having to communicate in different ways, using different platforms. I think it's really easy when you say communication to think talking.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just that. It's how do you navigate different online systems? How do you find different communication systems within the organisation you're looking at? And then obviously having those communication conversations. Also non-verbals are, because this is what people are looking for when you're in that situation of getting picked for a sport. They're looking for all of that. Did you communicate well before the trials? Did you verbally communicate well with your peers? Did you show non-verbals appropriately? And then regardless of whether you get picked or not, you go into the relevant extracurricular section, don't you? So whether that's for the university, whether that's local, whatever standard, that's irrelevant. But you learn to communicate with your peers in multiple different ways. And then I think university is really nice in the fact that they have the socials.
Yes.
And they have, the words left me, social sec. And
yes.
Is it just social sec? Goodness me, it's been a while since I was at uni. Is it social sec? Is there not another leader?
Yeah, but I only remember social sec because they were the social one.
That's the one that communicated well. Yeah. Anyway, so you had social sec, who you learn to have a democracy, to vote for your social sec. So you learn how to have a democracy, you learn how to vote, you learn how to communicate what you wanted with your social secretary, and how to conduct yourself in the sports situation, in the social situation, in the online sphere. Mm-hmm. So I think it's really easy to take all of those opportunities for granted. But if you didn't do that experience, what have you missed out on?
Yes.
And actually that experience takes you away from your studying, and hence the 8% decrease in your stress and anxiety. Absolutely. Because you're not thinking about, oh my goodness, when's the next deadline? You're thinking about, can I get that ball in the hoop?
Absolutely, yeah. Interestingly, I don't think I would have had the confidence to join a sports team and go to trials unless it was something I was exposed to as a child, and if my parents had taken me. Mm-hmm. So it all links through.
Yeah.
Time management.
I love this one.
Every job requires this skill.
Every job.
And you're definitely not taught it at school, because I do feel like I control the speed at which my pupils work at. I remind them constantly, you have 3 minutes left, 1 minute left.
Yeah.
Time management isn't something they do in my class, because as a teacher, I control that completely. I don't give them multiple tasks and they get a set time to complete it, because there's research that suggests that overwhelms people with special educational needs, and you need to break it down.
Yeah.
Pros and cons of both. But what's your thoughts on time management?
I think it's so, so important, especially, I apologise to listeners, I will use a lot of sport references because that's my experience. So I played a lot of tennis when I was younger. I got taken out of school to play tennis. So I was at a decent level, which was amazing, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I was really lucky to have the opportunity to do that. But my goodness, time management was important. So I was training 3 hours a night, 4 to 5 days a week, and then at the weekends it was tournaments. Now my mum and my dad really respect both of them. If I didn't do my homework, do you think I was going to tennis? Nope. If my grades dropped, was I going to tennis? Nope. So I really had to work hard on having that time management. And again, I owe so much to the support network that I had to be able to teach me how to do that. So I knew that I finished school at 3 and I needed to be down the tennis club by 3:30. So I had about half an hour to mess about with my friends and get down. And then I'd get changed, and then I probably knew I need to eat some food, and then I'd be on court at 4. And then I knew I'd be training for 3 hours, so I knew I'd have to have the right snacks. My mum she was like, if you can pack, at a certain age, obviously, she was like, you can pack your lunch. So I knew I'd have to pack my lunch correctly, so I was fueled until 7 p.m. when she'd come pick me up. And then I knew that when I got home, I'd have X amount of time to finish any homework that I didn't do. So actually, having that time management was so, so important, because I had although I had the guidance around me, so my coaches were really supportive, my parents were obviously really supportive, but at the end of the day, it was down to me. It wasn't my parents' job to nag me, because they were like, well, if you don't do it, you don't go to tennis. Like, that's your choice. And I think that was perfect parenting from them, because I learned how to do it. But again, we're talking about how extracurricular increases outcomes. It meant that when I got to my GCSEs, I knew exactly how to plan my time to revise efficiently, to get the right grades. And I still use the time management that I learned then now.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's not something you learn within subject classrooms.
No.
And what teachers don't teach it you.
Yeah,
directly.
Completely. And I think when we was at university, I remember you and I sitting down writing a to-do list, and our time management was fantastic.
It was so good,
because we spent all of our time together, but we'd be like, oh, we need to be on campus at this time, and we'd like to exercise, so we'll leave at this time. That gives us this amount of time to do this, etc., etc.
Yeah.
But we looked at some people at uni, and it's like, dude, you're going to be half an hour late. Yeah. There's no point in going to your lecture.
Yeah.
What are you doing? So yeah, I think, time management, I can't fault that one. You need it.
Yeah. And a perfect example that you described of how through extracurricular activities as a kid, through tennis, you learn a skill that you still use now.
Yeah.
And it would never have been taught to you if you hadn't gone through that process through extracurricular. Okay, another one I'm going to pick out is public speaking. This was a huge one for me, because as a child, I do believe innately I was an introvert, and I was really shy and not very confident. I used to play a lot of sport, and they used to score us on certain skills, and confidence was always my one that was like 2 stars out of 5. Yeah. Now, my parents, when I was really young, paid for me to do drama.
Oh, you did that? I didn't know this about you.
I hated drama as a kid. Absolute nightmare. Like, the thought of being on a stage in front of people, absolutely petrifying. But my mum and dad really wanted to build my confidence. drama school is not cheap. So
No.
we used to do shows and everything.
Yeah.
We did The Sound of Music once.
Oh, wow. Check you out.
I know. Hated it.
Is that why you're such a drama queen?
Yeah. Honestly, the thought, I hated it. I cried before I went on the stage every time.
Mm-hmm.
Awful. But thank God my parents pushed me to do that.
Yeah.
Because that ability to speak in front of people, memorize lines as well, practice with people, communicating with people through practicing our lines, all of those processes that I went through in this drama school, I think I must have done it for about 4 years. I learned so much. But public speaking was a huge one.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, as a teacher, we do it all the time. But even in my corporate job, you need to be able to speak in front of people and hold meetings and do PowerPoint presentations in front of people. So drama school is an incredible one to develop, not just public speaking, loads of skills, but such an expense for people.
Yeah.
Do you have any experience with public speaking?
Yeah, so again, I need to go back to my tennis because that's obviously where the majority of my experience is for extracurricular. So my coaches, they were fantastic. I'm so lucky that I had them in my life. So they would, to be honest, now I'm a teacher, I can see the similarities between coaching and teaching. So we'd normally have a squad of minimum 4, probably maximum 8 of us. And our coaches would quiz us in front of each other and tell us to explain things and to come up with drills. And, okay, Naomi, you're leading the warm-up. If I hadn't had that experience of answering questions in front of that group or leading a warm-up, like, that is public speaking. Right, guys, today we're going to do X, Y, Z. This is how we're going to warm up. And I led that warm-up. So not only was I doing communication, I was doing teamwork, I was doing leadership skills at the age of 10. And that was consistent. That's every week I was doing that. And then from that, they'd go, oh, Naomi, can you help out and coach? Well, not coach, but be a buddy. That's what they used to call it. Can you be a hitting buddy with one of the younger kids? It's like, yeah, of course I can.
Yeah.
And you're automatically doing that public speaking. And then actually, I think a lot of sports clubs do events, don't they? So we often did a yearly charity event. And we'd have people that got up and did talent shows or we did X Factor once. And I got up and made an absolute fool of myself and sang with one of my best friends on stage. Cannot sing, by the way. Don't ever make me do it.
You can't sing.
I can't sing. I cannot. And I was up on stage doing that. And then I given a little speech about... I don't know, whatever the charity was. But then again, my coaches have brought me back and said, oh, can you do a speech on your experience through your education? Mm-hmm. So at one of the award ceremonies, as a teenager, I've stood there and given a speech on my experience as a tennis player through school. That's public speaking.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have had that opportunity if I didn't do my extracurricular club.
Yeah. I do think it's interesting because as a teacher, I sometimes do activities where the class have to present something to me. You can tell who has had that exposure outside of school compared to who hasn't. It's actually really obvious. The drama kids smash it every time. And every time I think, gosh, that's amazing that you can do that. And there's pupils that genuinely can't. I have some parents that email me saying it can't happen because they're just too nervous.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just so obvious to me when pupils have access to extracurricular activities.
And I think, again, if we link that to outcomes, so in English, they have to do a speaking assessment, don't they? I did my speaking assessment on tennis. And so many kids come to me and they're like, I don't do anything, miss. I don't know what to do my English on. And I'm like, that's rough because it wasn't even a thought for me. And then again, so that was GCSE. At college, I had to do presentations. And again, one of the presentations I did was based on extracurricular activities. So a couple of weeks ago, I spoke about going to Kenya. That was extracurricular because I raised money to be able to do it. And then at university, we had to give really big presentations that were part of our grade.
Yeah.
Like we stood up at the front and gave a presentation about whatever researcher was talking about. I think it was barefoot shoes or something, wasn't it?
Yeah.
No, it wasn't. Was it baby milk? I can't
We did quite a
remember.
lot.
We did quite a lot of presentations, didn't we? But had we not had the experience beforehand, could you imagine how, like, we were nervous anyway. Could you imagine how nervous we would have been?
Yeah. Okay, our regular listeners will know that we finish every episode on a research bite. So, Miss Wild, what is your research bite this week?
Thank you. So the report on an unequal playing field, extracurricular activities, soft skills and social mobility report from the Department of Education and Institute for Policy Research and our University of Bath experts have given some advice on essentially what we can do in the public sector to help support extracurricular activities, which then support the soft skills and then long term will hopefully support social mobility. We're in a situation where obviously we would like our low socio-economic status children to be able to have access to extracurricular clubs because it's only fair. They're children, they didn't choose what they were born into. So I'm not going to go through all of the recommendations. The report is out there for people to read. Really good read. I would recommend it if you've got time. Most of you are teachers. Maybe just look at the key points. So the first recommendation that I am going to talk about is, it says, provide funding to develop and extend third sector initiatives that successfully facilitate access to extracurricular activities. Now, we know that extracurricular activities have a really higher cost. So this is all about providing funding to that third sector that provide the extracurricular activities to be able to subsidise those costs, because it's not accessible. It's just not. And actually, if we can give the third sector the money to be able to, for them to be able to provide a lower cost to the people that want it, then it becomes more accessible. Mm-hmm. I think there's something to be said there about maybe working with the schools. So again, that collaboration, so that maybe there's a link through schools that the people that are looking at these extracurricular clubs, if they're maybe pupil premium, then they have access to that reduced cost. But that will mean working with the schools, and that will mean also rules on GDPR being authorised. So there's a lot of work to be done there, but I think it's a really good recommendation, because actually reducing that cost makes it more accessible for those low socioeconomic status families. And I think that's just really important, so they have that access. The next one that I'm going to talk about, so the next recommendation, is increase the organisational capacity of schools to support their extracurricular provision and improve information on the availabilities of activities in local areas. So actually the second half of that is about, again, that collaboration between the third party extracurricular offer and schools. So they're both working with each other for that advertisement and that sort of word of mouth situation. But then also increase the organisational capacity of schools. Mm-hmm. Huge. And I think schools need to look at this, because we often have someone that goes, guys, can you just tell me what extracurricular activities there are and I'll pop it out on a timetable? And it's like, that's brilliant. But this report talks about giving staff the time to be able to do that extracurricular activity.
And pay them.
What are you giving them instead of, well, what are you giving them because they're doing that for you that's their job. So what are you giving them? Are you paying them for that time? Because if they're doing it in their lunchtime, that's their time.
Yeah, we don't get paid for lunch.
We don't get paid for lunch.
And not expecting people to do it for professional development for free.
Hugely.
We need to pay teachers to be doing these.
Yeah.
Because there is an expectation for them to just do it for free.
Yeah.
And they try and advertise it as, this will really increase your development.
Yeah. And it's when it comes out and they're like, guys, we haven't had enough people sign up for extracurricular clubs. Can more staff do it, please?
Well, of course.
Pay me. And I will. And And I know some schools will offer a free lunch, and it's like,
it's putting value on these teachers and their time.
is £2 good enough?
No,
not really. If we look into the depths of it,
no, it's not putting enough value on teachers.
And I'm not saying it's the head teacher's issue. It's not the issue of the school, because all schools are doing it.
Absolutely.
It's the issue of the bigger picture.
Yeah.
We need a government response.
Yes,
to say, if teachers run an extracurricular club, this is the recommendation of how much you pay them.
Yes.
And that comes under overtime.
Yes.
That comes under overtime.
Correct.
So yeah, I think 2 really big things there. Work with third parties and work with schools to make sure there is capacity within school for extracurricular clubs.
Brilliant. Can you just remind the listeners about the name of the report, please?
Yes, of course. So it's an unequal playing field, extracurricular activities, soft skills and social mobility report. And it is from the Department of Education and Institute for Policy Research.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for listening this week. We hope to see you again next week. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.